I wake up, and the first thing I know is darkness. But not a darkness I recognize. It was a new kind of darkness, and that was a shock, because I had come to know darknesses so well. After all those years, all those dozens of 5s and 2s, I could tell you in an instant whether I was waking up to the common darkness of a midnight beating, or the darkness of a burlapped sack over my head, or just the comfortable, familiar darkness of my felted blanket on the packed dirt floor of my cell. And those were just the common darknesses. There were uncommon ones too, of course. The black of a Siberian night on a forced march, the smothering wet darkness of a pillow held over my face, or that throbbing interior darkness of a cracked skull. But this was something else entirely. This darkness was pierced by these thumb-thick shafts of brilliant light. It was a sprawling against the sharp corners of cardboard boxes kind of darkness, a queasy, lolling, and dripping wet kind of darkness. And with this newness came fear. And with that fear came questions. Endurance, so often that was the only sane choice. But when things changed, it was always hard to tell if the Yakuts wanted me to speak up or just shut up. I reached up and touched my head. It was bleeding, matted with drawing blood. I touched my feet. They weren't bound. And that is what made me speak. "Hello," I said in Yakut. "Hello, my feet are not bound. Will you bind my feet?" Nothing but silence. The wrongness just compounded. I curled myself into a ball there among the boxes and just let myself be rocked by the lulling dark space. After what felt like an eternity, I figured it out. I was floating. Slowly, that rocking sensation had resolved into a clear back and forth, a rhythmic sway that wasn't just the throbbing in my head. The entire room, the boxes, me, everything was somehow buoying on gentle waves. I could hear it, a light lapping of water against something. And behind that lapping sound, there was another sound. Shallow breathing. I knew that particular breathing. My blood, it seemed to slow right down in my veins, afraid to move for fear of waking the Koryak. I held my own breath, trying to quiet my mind, but it wouldn't quiet. I had to get the attention of one of the Yakuts, the more reasonable ones, and I had to do it without waking him. So I started moving with this excruciating care, feeling around for a ladder, a staircase, a rope, anything. But there was nothing, just boxes. I looked up at those shafts of light. They were coming from small holes in the ceiling, not too far above me. I stumbled over the boxes until I found a wall, a ribbed composite wall. The ribs were sloped the wrong way for climbing, but I dug the fingernails of my left hand in, and I pulled, and my head immediately smacked the ceiling, knocking me right back into the boxes with a loud crunch. I froze, just braced for the beating I knew was coming. But there was none. I stayed utterly still until I could hear the Koryak's breathing again, under the frantic pounding of my own heart. He never slept so soundly. Was this some kind of trick? In spite of my terror, I tried again, more slowly this time. I pulled myself up, just ignoring the bleeding of my cracked and calloused palms as I struggled to find any kind of purchase on the little flaws in that composite wall. Every single movement was a silent scream from my muscles. I reached a hand up and felt it. The low, hard ceiling. Leveraging myself into position, it was a triumph of will against my scarred and malnourished body, but I did it. I brought my eyes to one of those glimmering holes. It was no bigger than my pinky finger. When my eye finally adjusted to the brightness, I couldn't make out anything through it but a sliver of cloud-brushed skyscape. I felt the edge of the opening. It was a bullet hole. And then I had a flash of memory. Shots. Shots had been fired. I could almost hear the clickety-clack whump of bullets ricocheting off composite. My body was starting to shake uncontrollably from the exertion. Besides the few times the Yakuts made me carry their packs, and of course the frequent beatings, this was by far the most strenuous thing I'd done in years. My muscles screamed. My ankles, free of their ropes, hung open to the air. It felt terrible, and it felt wonderful. For the first time in so long I couldn't remember, I felt, well, it must be joy. Joy, tinged with fear, of course, as all my emotions were, but it was still astonishing. Unfamiliar, yet I recognized it. Joy. A drop of water seeped between my cracked lips. It stung terribly, and I tasted it. It was briny. Not rainwater then. Seawater. And then I remembered. I had been on a sea train.
And I was supposed to be released. Released. I scrambled to bring my mouth right up to the bullet hole. "Hello," I rasped, my lips chafing against the sharp edges of the composite. "Sirs, hello." My legs were quaking fiercely now, and one of my feet slipped. I lost my footing entirely and just swung there by my fingertips. No, 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 I thought. Don't let me fall and die now. I knew the boxes weren't far below me, but the darkness beneath my dangling feet, it felt like infinity. Another new kind of darkness. I grasped for my life. My recurrent death wish had been evaporated by those shafts of brilliant light, but my hands, they slipped, and I was back in the boxes, heart racing, penetrated through with a fear more potent than any I'd ever known. But my mind was alive. Through all the pain and confusion, I focused on one thing: release. Fighting this queasy terror, I ran my hands gingerly over the Kuryak's pockets, looking for a gun, a knife, anything. They were empty. He wore a tool belt, but the only thing on it was a heavy tape measure. I took it. In desperation, I climbed the wall again. I propped myself in place, hooked the tape measure's metal belt clip to the rough edge of the hole, and I yanked until my arms trembled. But I just couldn't get enough leverage to tear the composite. So I put all my weight on it, I grabbed the tape with both hands, and let my legs swing free. I fell almost immediately. I could feel my skin tear and crack and leak warm blood even before I landed with a crunch. But I looked up, and I saw that I had torn a hand-sized flap in the composite wall. I gritted my teeth in the closest thing to a smile I could manage, and as I bent the belt clip back into shape, I heard it. The Kuryak's breathing. It had changed. Shallower, quieter, more in control. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, I flicked the tape measure's small laser level toward where I thought his eyes would be, a pathetic attempt to distract him. He chuckled, and he launched. I covered my face and swung the heavy tape measure hard at his temple, but he was already on top of me and I couldn't land a solid blow. His knees were in my ribs, just crushing me, and he shouted something in the Koryak language. I bit his arm as hard as I could, and I didn't stop when I tasted blood. He groaned and pulled back, giving me just enough distance to slash his face with the ragged metal belt clip. His breathing was labored, but he didn't scream. I did it again, feeling the rough cutting of his flesh with this grim satisfaction. Then again. And he was backing away. He hit a wall and slipped, and I used the opportunity to fall on him, jamming both my knees into his groin and taking a solid bash at his face with the heavy end of the tape measure. And I just kept bashing him with it, over and over and over again. And with each tear of flesh, each crunch of bone, I remembered the burns, the cuts, the fingernails pulled from their beds. And I hit him harder each time, until I was just bashing greasy tissue into soaked cardboard. I shuddered. A violent tremor just ran through my whole body. I had seen such acts often enough, God knows, but it was the first time I'd killed another human being. My fingers were tangled in his hair, and blood. I stood up, pulling the gore away from its source, then flung it down in disgust. I wiped my hands on my pants and climbed the wall for the last time. I didn't care if I had to swim home. Damn the Koryak. I was free. At the top of the wall, I stuck my arm through the flap I had ripped, feeling that cold salt water just bite my new wounds. I pulled hard, got another hand through, then an arm. I felt a metal rail on the outside surface and grabbed it, pulling my body through that jagged hole, letting the composite slice into the skin of my belly, my thigh, my shins. It could have gutted me for all I cared. The sun, it was blinding. I was out, crouching on top of the container. Its shiny outer surface was wet and slippery. I slid a short distance, completely day-blind, and tripped over another rail. I tumbled and splashed and found myself underwater. The cold was a total shock. Despite the saltwater sting and the burn of the sun, I willed my eyes open and reached for the shadow of the container, grabbing that rail and just clinging on tight. I pulled myself above water, folded my arms over the rail, and held on for my life. Eventually, I managed to hoist myself on top of it again, but I was free. When my eyes finally adjusted, I surveyed my predicament. There was nothing but the container's red enamel and open sea all around me. It had been upended somehow, floating vertically, and I was crouched on its narrow end, looking around at an endless horizon of open sea and open sky. 14 years a hostage, and this is how it ends. I was alone, afloat in the open ocean, but I was free.